Hang on one second.
Okay, we're good again. Sorry.
All right. So Clint is the godfather of if you've heard of the term earthing or grounding,
Oh, yeah.
basically kind of the barefoot movement, getting your feet touching the earth, that kind of stuff. So that just kind of got me thinking our conversation, and we'll go into some details about some of the stuff that we talked about, but it got me thinking about what are those things that are really not that hard for us to do that maybe we don't really know about. Maybe we don't really understand why they are important or why they can help without it being something that is like so far out there and so minuscule, but people are trying to do, like you hear of people doing things like, and they can be very beneficial. And I think of Shep when we're talking about this too, because John Shepard and I, we've been talking about this podcast called the Huberman Lab. And it's a neuroscientist, and he's basically goes on a deep dive of all of these different health and optimization topics and neuroscience. And, so he's talking about the effects of like cold therapy and doing like cold plunges, and how, the specifics of when to do cold plunges or cryotherapy. But like, those are the things that your average Joe doesn't necessarily have real access to some of those pieces of equipment, really. Like the cryotherapy tank. Like, most of us aren't going to go do cryotherapy 3 times a week because it costs a lot of money. You need to find a facility that has it, or even the cold plunge. If you don't live next to a cold river, or you're not Tony Robbins and have a cold plunge, in your house, right. Joe Rogan, where you can, maintain a temperature of 50 degrees in this cold plunge or whatever. Yeah, it all sounds great, but it's going to take a whole lot of effort or time or money to be able to figure out how you can do these things that are going to optimize your performance or recovery. So it got me thinking about, well, what are some of the really simple things that we've seen and learned about over the years? Grounding or earthing being one of them. That episode will come out probably in about a week and a half or so. And I'll tell you guys about a couple of resources where you can check out more of that. But so like for instance, that is grounding is basically getting your skin to touch the earth. Long story short, think about when the last time you actually had your bare feet on the grass or, the sand or the dirt or any, actual earth surface outside of the concrete. Like I'm in a room that has concrete floors inside a structure, or I go out to the gym and, first of all, we're typically wearing shoes. We've got clothes on, so we've got this barrier between our skin and the earth's surface. Now, why is that important? Well, it's because the earth, everything in this world is pretty much run on electrical current, right? Down to the atomic level. So our skin, our muscles, our cells, the atoms, it's all run by electricity in one way, shape, or form. It's all energy. It's all magnetic currents. And I know that this sounds kind of crazy and woo-woo, but the way to think about it is the earth is basically like a big battery that is pretty much charged by the sun. The earth is really what kind of ends up charging our body as a battery and helps everything run in sync, right? So what happens is if we're distanced from, or we're not in contact with a battery source, it can just kind of wreak havoc amongst what's going on electrically in our body. Clint, the guy that I said I interviewed, his background is all in telecommunications and cable and electrical engineering. And you'll hear his story, but basically he discovered that, every project he's ever been on, any kind of electrical work you ever do, you have to ground the system. We all know, like our electrical outlets here in the States, we've got the 3 prongs and the one on the bottom is the ground, right? And that's basically to make sure that there's no short circuits, there's no fires that develop, there's no like surges. And the same thing happens with our body. And the way that we ground is simply by touching the earth. That's all a ground is. It's a rod into the earth's surface. So what it does is it allows the electrons to flow properly. And really, whenever something goes wrong in our body, whenever we have pain, it's all based around inflammation. And inflammation is when we have inflammation in our body's natural response, it's called the inflammatory response, is to it sends the white blood cells in, and they go and they attack basically whatever the threat is, and they kick off these free radicals. And the free radicals, think of them as security dogs. The free radicals have to go in and they have to attack the bad guys, is the way that Clint describes it. These free radicals, they attack the bad guys, but then once they get all the bad guys, they're still hungry and they're still roaming around. So it's basically like they start to attack the owner. So they start to attack our own body. So they're looking for electrons. They're looking to kind of gobble all these electrons up. Well, if our body is out of whack, it starts to it's attacking our own immune system. Our immune system has gone haywire. What happens when you touch your skin to the surface of the earth, just like any electrical current, electrons from this battery, from the earth, are coming into our body, and they're basically satiating these free radicals, and then it dissipates. We'll say it dissipates the fire in our body. The inflammation is, like a flame.
Right. Yep.
And so that's really kind of the premise behind this whole grounding movement, is to get our body back in sync with the proper electrical currents, which help everything work better. It helps to prevent all of these issues inside our body, and really just kind of gets things back into the system. The way Clint describes it is way better. There's also a 15-minute short video on YouTube. If you look up the Earthing movie short, you'll find a 15-minute video that kind of walks through his background and kind of the story of what it is. And then there's a longer version of that movie. There's also the book, which I have here, and I have gone through pretty fastidiously. But that's one of those things where it doesn't take a whole lot of effort to take your shoes off and spend a little bit of time outside. And Clint even said, one of the best things that you can do is, after a long day of being inside, like right now, I'm surrounded by, tons of lights and concrete, and I'm in my shoes, and I'll be here till, 5:30 this afternoon. But when you get home, he said the best thing you can do at the end of the day is just go out and ground yourself, because again, it helps with that current. It helps to kind of reset everything. And this is going to sound kind of crazy, but I did this last night, and I've talked about it before on our calls here about how I've been having some back issues over the past several months, really. And it's been getting better. And, I've been doing my exercises, and I've been doing a lot of different things to work on it. But I went home last night, and I did my grounding. And then I also have, you'll hear me talk about this with Clint in the interview. I have this, it's called a grounding mat, and you plug it in.
Oh, yeah.
You plug it in, and it goes right into a regular outlet. And so sometimes when I'm here in the office, you can just stand on this thing, and it basically does the same thing. Stand on it barefoot. So I put it under my sheet last night, and I slept with it on my bed. And I woke up this morning, and I told my wife when I went downstairs, I said, and might sound crazy, this is the first time I've woken up in at least the last 3 to 6 months with no back pain whatsoever.
Weird.
First time. Really. Yeah. Like,
did you put it under your back or under your feet?
I put it under on the bed. I just laid it like under, so it's 12 inches by 24 inches. And okay. I just laid it under like my torso, where my torso would be, like widthwise. Because all it needs is, contact, basically rough contact with the skin. He said a sheet doesn't matter, because they make bigger versions of this that you actually are supposed to put on your bed to sleep in. Because he said that's you get long-term exposure when you're sleeping. So anyway, it took no extra effort on my part, except for the 10 minutes that I went outside and put my feet on the ground to do that. But then obviously you have to have a piece of equipment, which I think this thing costs like $30. So it's not like a super expensive piece of equipment. and I'm not saying it's a miracle cure, and I'm not saying that I think my back is cured forever, but it is just one of those things like, that's pretty interesting. And I completely buy into the actual science of what he's talking about after reading the book and the studies that they've done, the athletes that they work with, the collegiate, the universities that they work with. So that's one of the things that I think is, it's unorthodox. Most people don't even know about it. Most people will think that I'm crazy when I talk about it, when they initially hear it. But that's why I think it was so important to hear like Clint's background and where he came from in the electrical engineering space. And you'll hear his story on how he discovered this and then the other people that he went and tested it out on. But very unorthodox. But one of the pieces, and Ryan, you and I can attest to this, and we've said it for the past 2 years, going out to what's the name of the little resort place that we go to and play the 5 holes of golf?
Oh, Timber Creek.
And we go and
Always
we play barefoot, because you can go and you can play in your swimming trunks if you want. So, there's something to be said about, just being out in nature, being out in the serenity of that, but also knowing the fact that going out there barefooted, you're grounding the entire time while you're playing. It was a very unique experience to do that these last couple of years that we did that. And I loved it. And I know you did too. It's interesting.
It's very freeing to play golf like that. Does he like, we're always trying to quantify everything. Does he have like a set amount of time that you like, hey, take 10 minutes and go walk in your backyard or go walk the park or is it just like the more the better type thing? It's like it's measurable, but it's not
right. Yeah.
Measurable.
So they kind of talk about it in the book a little bit. In the interview, he talked about, he said, basically, I tell people, do it until the pain goes away. Now, again, that's not a very specific answer. But the longer, the better. So the longer the exposure, the better. The more surface area you can get, the better. But in the book, they gave a general guideline of, roughly, I think it was, and it's been a while since I read this, but I kind of remember them saying roughly around like 20 minutes, I think, is the amount of time that it takes for your blood to fully circulate through your system. And so that was kind of a general timeline that they gave, given the fact that, if it takes your blood that long to circulate all throughout the body, then that would be a sufficient amount of time minimally to kind of basically get that current all throughout the body. Now, when they're doing their different trials and studies and stuff like that, they'll even use kind of like the mat that I have, except the wires will attach just to electrode pads. And so they'll put it directly on whatever area of pain somebody might be having. So if you have knee pain, they would just take, like 4 electrode pads and put it on the knee and then just let the person sit with it like that for a while. Or, put the pads on your back or wherever.
So now that therapy is something that in your world, physical therapy world, you've been doing for a long time, where you put I know what that is. Or like if you have say you have a pulled muscle, where you put that.
Yeah, like the electrical stimulation, but that's
right.
Again, that's a little different. That's like an induced current to facilitate muscle contraction, and that's facilitated by the machine itself. That's not necessarily a grounded. I mean, it's a grounded machine, of course, but it's not the same principle. But they're using an electrical current to help reduce inflammation and to help, so it'd be interesting to see what the difference is between some of the different frequencies that they use when they're doing E-stim in, with the desired effect of reducing inflammation, or when they're doing it to engage the muscle contraction. Because when they're doing for the muscle contraction, it's more of a physical pumping that they're looking for, as opposed to just, more the tingling, the electrical current. But I mean, along those same lines, yeah, it's using some sort of electricity to help influence the physiology of the body.
Gotcha. Yeah. So Jeffrey Miller, one of our regulars, he said that he's in the chat, he's on the Earth Daily barefoot, which I'm jealous. I cut the grass a lot barefoot. I don't know if it's the hippie part of me or something drives me to do that. But Jeffrey says that I sit in my yard under a tree reading a book for about 30 minutes.
Oh, that's
like, well,
awesome.
that is awesome. And
Yeah.
this one sounds super counterintuitive. If you walk barefoot on like cobblestone or rocks, you can lower your blood pressure, which I don't maybe forget about it because that sucks. Like especially in the beginning of summer when your feet aren't used to anything.
Yeah.
Walking on like a gravel road is miserable.
My feet are, let's see. Yeah. Yeah. Your nerve endings in your feet. Same with your hands. It's amazing. In fact, and maybe we'll talk about some cold stuff in a little bit too, but the fact that you have all the nerve endings in your palms and in the bottoms of your feet also have a big impact on kind of your body temperature stuff too. But as far as walking on the cobblestones and rocks, I would imagine that is simply kind of the same principle because it's still conducting. He even says that, walking on concrete outside, you're still going to get some conduction through that concrete. I mean, it's still, part of the earth, but the best is to be in the soil or damp grass or, something that's a little bit more along those lines.
Or organic.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. But so that Huberman podcast that Shepard and I have been listening to, and John's done more of a deep dive on it than I have, but I was listening to the cold exposure one recently. And cold is another thing that I was going to talk about as far as, another simple kind of unorthodox way to optimize your performance, optimize your life. Really, we've talked a lot about the cold showers and just what that does on a daily basis. Again, a very simple thing that you can do with hardly any extra effort, except for the fact that you have to mentally get over getting into that cold shower.
Right.
But, cold can have some very serious health effects. We've talked about Wim Hof, and how he's talked about it just from an immunity standpoint and how that can help with your immune system. It obviously can help with your mental fortitude, just getting in the cold, whether that be getting in a cold river or lake or turning on the cold shower. But back to what I was going to say about the Huberman podcast, and this is important for all of our golfers that ever play in any kind of hot weather conditions. He said that one of the things that people do wrong when you're out playing golf in really hot weather, or, we're out playing soccer in 100-degree weather, like we did that one time, what most people will do in an attempt to cool down their body temperature is they will take let's say a drenched cold towel and they'll throw it on their head or they'll throw it on their neck.
Yeah, I see it all the time.
And he said that that's actually one of the worst things that you can do because we have sensors in our skin that feel that, and they're almost like our thermostat. So they feel the cold and they sense cold. So then they end up kind of kicking up the temperature in your body because it's almost like a false positive that it's cold outside. And so when your skin feels that cold, your body starts to kick up the heat. He said that what you really should do is get the cold on your palms or on the bottoms of your feet, or both if possible. And that will help cool down your system without triggering those sensors. I thought that was kind of fascinating because I mean, how often do we just dump cold water on our head or on our neck, or take the towel and wrap it around our neck?
Feels good.
Yeah. But if we did something with the hands and the feet and put it on our palms, it would be that much quicker. John, did you want to chime in there?
Yeah, about the Palmer cooling and all that. It has something to do with some pathways called AMAs, and you can probably look this up. But did he go into the study that they did with the recovery piece of that, like between sets of like heavy repetitions till failure?
I haven't gotten all the way through that episode yet, actually.
Okay. Well, the Palmer cooling thing is pretty impressive. In fact, like they've shown that people can go max out to failure, do Palmer cooling, and then go back and like almost double their whatever that number was to failure just from cooling the palms of the hands, like right after. It's not like the next day or whatever, it's same sets.
Whoa,
Yeah, the Palmer cooling stuff is pretty interesting.
interesting.
Hmm.
So sorry, I've kind of ruined the big one there for that podcast.
No, that's
Spoiler alert.
That's all right. That's going to make me go listen to it even quicker. And again, that's the Huberman podcast. If you guys are interested, one of the best ones that I've listened to, and I've probably only listened to 4 or 5 of them. But if you want a master class on strength training and really the physiology of it, listen to the one with him and Dr. Andy Galpin. It's about 3 hours long, so it's very, very long. But Andy Galpin is probably one of the foremost experts on strength and conditioning. It sounds like he works with some PGA Tour professionals. I reached out to him to see if we could get him on the show, but haven't been able to do that yet. But it's one of the most informative yet well broken down interviews and really just pieces of content that I've ever heard around strength training, like breaking up, why do you, or how do you train for different purposes? Strength training, power, hypertrophy or muscle building, fat loss. And he kind of explains the reasoning, not just, what are the sets and reps, but what's the physiology behind it and why do you do it that way? It was really fascinating. I probably need to go listen to it a couple more times and take notes. But his name was the Huberman Lab podcast, and Dr. Andy Galpin, Galpin.
Nice. So if you're writing a blog post, what would be the top 3 benefits of grounding and the top 3 benefits of like a cold shower?
So grounding, I would say number 1 is purely for anti-inflammation. That would be the first one. Second one would be, and I'm not sure that Clint would put it this way, but I think relaxation. It talks about how it basically, we're constantly in a fight or flight state. Our autonomic nervous system is constantly, the sympathetic nervous system is constantly ramped up, really from all the stresses that we're under all day long. The lights, the phones, all of these things are stimulants, and stimulants kind of turn on our sympathetic nervous system. And what the grounding does is it taps in a little bit more into the parasympathetic nervous system. So it is like a de-stressor, kind of calms us down a little bit.
Yep.
And then I would say probably kind of along the same lines of inflammation, I would say reduction in pain or promotion of healing. So, getting rid of pains and discomforts that we have, or helping to heal. They did it on like studies on like wound healing and those kinds of tests. But even just helping to heal issues that really are all stemming from inflammation. So that kind of falls in line with that first one. As far as cold exposure, not necessarily a top 1, 2, 3, but in no real specific order. 1 is just change of state, kind of changing your alertness.
Yep.
And, we've all experienced that with the cold showers. Like you get out and you feel pretty amazing. You feel like you're ready to run through a brick wall, as many people have said. Another one I think is the mental fortitude piece of it and he talks about this in the cold exposure of kind of like getting over that wall of, I don't want to do it, but I ended up doing it. Like I don't want to turn off the hot water and get in the cold shower. But when you do that helps with your mental toughness. Not, more from a psychological standpoint than a physiological standpoint, but being able to do that and get over little hurdles like that help to continue to build up your ability to do that in other situations. And then probably the third one there, again, kind of along the inflammatory lines, we've in cold showers, they discuss this a little bit. Cold showers aren't nearly as effective as doing a cold plunge or, doing something where you're totally immersed in for a longer period of time. The cold immersion actually helps to kind of shunt the blood basically into the organs and then kind of lets it flush back out. So there's kind of an anti-inflammation property to that as well. So I'd say those are probably the three, with the third one being a little bit, more towards cold plunges.
Yep. Yeah, that's great. All the stuff it's so like it's how you feel. You know what I mean? It's a
Right.
tough
That's what's
sell.
hard.
Like,
Yeah.
when you, I was thinking about like that Matt, like if the guy that you just interviewed yesterday, if he tried to take that concept on the Shark Tank, like Mark Cuban would say, get off the stage right now,
Right.
because and he's not that Mark Cuban is right, but then this guy could definitely be right. And who knows? It's different. Just because
You mean because
can't,
there's not like a tangible
right? I think because
way to show it, and
Yeah.
it's not an immediate, there's not, because you stand on the thing and it's not like it's tingling. It's not like you're not feeling anything. But I think it's one of those things that over a course of exposure, that's when people will start to notice differences. And maybe that's where, something like his experience was that the first time he tried anything regarding the body and grounding, he went to the hardware store and bought that duct tape, that metal duct tape, and laid it on his bed.
Oh yeah, like actual duct tape, right?
Yeah. And the story goes, he then had a wire that he went and grounded it out to the earth, and like fell asleep while he was doing different things at night. And he had chronic trouble sleeping and had aches and, all these aches and pains, and woke up the next day and was like, whoa, that's weird. I slept all the way through the night and I don't hurt nearly as bad as I normally would. And then just kind of kept seeing that happen. But yeah, you're right. It's not an immediate boom. I saw it, which really, I mean, that's why it's so hard to sell anything in the health, and it's why it's hard to sell supplements. That's why it's hard to sell exercise. That's why it's hard to sell, all the non-sexy stuff, because there's not that immediate quick gratification. But over the course of time is when you see the benefits of it. Same with, I would say the cold shower, you can feel that immediate rush, right? So like that's different, but can't sell a cold shower.
No. Yeah, Wall Street's not going to like you for that.
Yeah.
We're in this weird time where if it doesn't make money, it just that can't be true. There's got to be a better way. There's a pill that can do this.
Yeah. So I want to throw this out to the group, because I've got a couple other things on my list here, but I'm curious if anybody on here that's willing to share, if you have something that kind of falls in line with this, something a little bit unorthodox that is kind of in the simple realm that you have either implemented or experienced and would fall into that line of, yeah, this is something that I do or have done that really helped or really helps, that maybe most people don't know about, and it isn't like a huge investment, doesn't take a ton of time. Anybody have any experiences with any other things besides grounding and cold exposure?
I just bought a so-called Shakti mat, which is a spike mat, and it's a very old ancient Indian way of relaxation and just get the blood circulating. It takes about, I mean, when you first get on it, you lay on it. It's quite, you can buy them in different degrees. I just got the original ones, but a couple of first minutes, it really quite hurts. You do deep breathing. And then little by little, you add every evening a little bit more. And now I do 20 minutes, and it sort of warms up your body, and you feel really, really nice, especially before you go to sleep. You sleep like a baby afterwards, and it really feels good. And it's got a really good, I mean, they done it for centuries and thousands of years in India. And it works on acupuncture, really, but it's a great feeling, and it doesn't cost much, a Shakti mat. And Shakti means, it's a Sanskrit, and it means life energy. And I find that quite interesting.
Yeah, so it's like laying on like a bed of nails.
Like a soft bed of the nails. Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I could see that. Here's what's funny about this. I'm going to get off on a tangent for 30 seconds. When Bodine and I would go to our grandma's house, she would have like plastic runners that ran down the hallway on the carpet so you couldn't mess up the carpet. And if you like made her mad enough, she would flip them over and make you kneel on those because they had all the spikes that would hold the runners in place. Little did she know she was helping us. This feels great, Grandma.
Little glimpse into our childhood.
I got two things that I can share.
Yeah. Go for it, Jeffrey.
Walking backwards and sideways. That's unconventional.
Yes.
So that's just create balance, as you know. And also I use a PEMF mat every other day, pulse electromagnetic field therapy. It reduces inflammation, increases circulation, heals broken bones. It's an FDA approved medical device. So it's a wonderful piece of equipment that, again, good chiropractors have it, good PTs have it, all the sports teams have it, the professional ones, because it reduces inflammation pretty quickly. So just, the PEMF, again, I'm a 1%er because not the population doesn't use it.
Well, yeah. So the PEMF mats, there was an episode on Ed Milet's podcast with, what's his name from, I think it's Da Vinci Medical. And he talks about the PEMF mats, and that is basically grounding on steroids, pretty much. So it's like the exposure that you're getting on that mat is what you would get from the earth, but super amplified. So you don't have to, you get the exposure in a minuscule amount of time compared to having to stand on the earth or be barefoot for hours at a time. In fact, I'm supposed to have that guy on the show. He had a major surgery recently, so hopefully we'll get him on. But he went into a lot of detail on that and said how those are becoming more popular and more accessible. And like you said, a lot of chiropractors do have those available. I have yet to try one, but I was talking with somebody in the gym not too long ago. They have one here in town, and that person was it's called Palm Health here in St. Louis, and they were at Palm, and they said that that they have used it multiple times and they swear by it. So it's, again, kind of grounding on steroids.
Yes, this is another way of just another alternative way to keep my body and cells healthy and happy and moving forward. So those are the two different things I do: walking backwards, sideways, and the PEMF mat. And I think that's all I got. And meditate. I guess that's another rarity that I start my day with meditation. No electronics. Actually, I have no electronics in my bedroom. No TV. No phones, so it's a sterile environment. So that's another thing I do.
All of those. All of those are you're kind of hitting my list here, Jeffrey. That's awesome. I did not have the walking backwards and sideways on here, but that's something that I've been doing almost every morning too. Is on my walks. If I'm not, well, even sometimes when I'm running, I've kind of just started going over into the park in the morning, and I've got this hill that is a pretty long hill, and rather than just go around the park, I've just started going up and down the hill. Sometimes I'll go forward, sometimes I'll go backwards, sometimes I'll go sideways, whether I'm walking with a vest on or whether I'm running or whatever. But I saw somebody do that in the park. She was an elderly lady, and I saw her do it about a year ago. And I was like, that's so smart. She was just sidestepping up this hill. And I'm like, what a great idea. Like just a simple way to work on some lateral movement, right? I mean, we're always going forward. I think some people now have experienced walking backwards and the effect of that. And, it gives you the little quad burn. And now you've got knees over toes guy talking a lot about walking backwards and how beneficial that is. But nobody talks about walking sideways. And I saw her doing it. And I was like, man, especially for, why we're here for golf, we have a lot of lateral motion that we never work on. And, thank Rhino for like Murphy for the soccer players, just simple stuff, just a way to get a little bit more athletic when you're just walking the dog.
Yeah, I've never heard of the sideways ones. Do you do grapevines or just do click your heels or just however you feel like doing it?
I typically will do, if I'm going at a faster pace, it's a little bit of a hop or a skip, but otherwise it's just kind of a side shuffle. Or
another thing I do for my feet is I interlock my fingers in between my toes. Like I'm probably the only male that admits I have toe spacers. According to Dr. Emily Speichel, a podiatrist, she says bunions are caused by lack of space in your toes. So to prevent it is to massage, your big toe. If it doesn't move correctly, you're gonna have shoulder issues, back issues. So yeah, I'm the only guy that really promotes foot health. I have one client, I spend 25 minutes just working her feet. That's it, because she's 82 years old in a walker, so we're limited on what we can do. So all I can do to make her feel better is just to massage her feet and move her toes.
Yeah. Awesome. I've got toe spacers also. So there's another one of us.
So you can paint your toenails?
So I can paint my toenails, yeah.
We
Go
call
ahead,
it
Marina.
in yoga. In yoga, we call it a yoga handshake, when you put your fingers in between your toes and then you massage them. And what I do with my feet, I put my Theragun on the feet as well, which is really good.
Yep. So Ryan and I, we've done some work with Rad Roller in the past, and they have, a lot of myofascial massage tools. They teamed up with a company called, I think it's Naboso, and they basically, it sounds like they have a ball that sounds a lot like the mat that you were talking about, Marina. And so it's about the size of a racquetball. And I love using that on the bottom of my feet. It also pops open and they've got a smaller little myofascial ball in there too. But it's got the little spike technology on it, which sounds a lot like the mat, but rolling that out. So kind of along the lines of what you're talking about with, using the pulsating gun on the feet, rolling them out on a ball, a golf ball, a tennis ball, a lacrosse ball, or one of these Nabosu balls. Can really kind of wake up. We talked about, all the 6,000 nerve endings in the feet. It can help wake those up and get those muscles moving quite a bit more, and which has been really helpful for me. So I had a foot injury a long time ago, and I definitely notice issues with that foot. And when I am more diligent about using that ball, or just paying a little bit more attention to my feet and my toes, which is why I got the toe spacers, it makes a big difference.
Just a note, Naboso was created by Dr. Emily, the podiatrist, who I've been hanging out with and studying.
Okay,
so yeah,
there you go.
She's a functional podiatrist. How many podiatrists look at your pelvic floor or your shoulders? Most podiatrists just look at your feet and nothing else.
Yeah.
So she's pretty smart.
Awesome.
Nice lady. And then so Randy, his what he does is the Tappy tea. I'm not sure what that is. I'm more of like a green tea or something.
Yeah.
You know what I've started doing is drinking the Athletic greens every day. The Joe Rogan, I've been listening for so long, he finally got to me.
Right.
Repetition. I love them. They're great.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, there he is. What's up, Randy?
Is that Randy? Hey, Randy.
My brother's a pro golfer, and another pro had told him about this tea that helps tremendously with pain. And so I told my wife about it, and my wife has got fibromyalgia, and she had a hard time getting around in the house, and she started drinking this. She's walking 5 miles a day now. And so crazy, all right? So anyhow, I needed a knee replacement in April, and it got canceled.
Holy cow.
And so I started drinking the stuff, and I'm working total leg workouts and everything. Well, we were running out of the stuff. So I said, you know what? I want my wife to keep up with it. In a week's time, my knee is starting to hurt again. So we just got a batch of this again. And trust me, I'm going to be drinking it tonight. This tea is unbelievable. And you get it at on eBay. You can't get it on Amazon, but it's amazing. I can't believe how you could probably shoot me with a gun and I wouldn't feel
it.
You sure this isn't meth, Randy?
Well, and then I told my doctor about it, because I went in to get my knee checked, and I mean, we were going to put an injection in there, and I said, I don't need it. And he says, well, what are you doing? I told him about this, and he said, does it have THC or anything like that? I go, no. And my wife has looked up all the different ingredients, and it's all natural, and it's amazing. That's all I can tell you.
How do you say it? Is it Tappy? Am I saying that right?
I don't know. Oh, it's even all the writing on the label is Asian, but you could find it on eBay, and it's amazing. That's all I could say. And my knee, like I said, I was doing squats, leg press, leg extensions, and everything, and now without a week of having it, it's been coming back. And so we just got a batch of it back. It was like back ordered or something. But it's worth a try. And it tastes horrible. It absolutely
then it must be good.
It must be good, right? If
So
they're
I
still
mix a
selling
little-
it and it tastes terrible.
Yeah, I mix a little organic honey with it, but it's amazing.
All right.
Very
I'm
cool,
willing to
yeah.
be a guinea pig. I'll give it a shot.
Yeah, that's a new one for me.
All right. Tappy tea. Okay. If anybody else tries it, we want to report.
Right. And if you drop dead, his name's Randy.
Randy, sign the waiver.
Right. Okay, Bodie, we are up to 3:00, my man.
All right. The only other things that I was going to mention, well, for just walking in general, first of all, it's the simplest thing.
Yeah.
And I think it's probably the thing that Ryan, you and I have instituted over the past several years on a daily basis. And super simple and life-changing, really.
Yeah, I don't ever miss it, ever.
Yeah. And then we've talked about this in the past, but the nasal breathing, and working on even just breath work. Elliot mentioned meditation. Maureen has talked about meditation a lot in past calls. We've talked about meditation. But just breathing and meditation, those are very simple things that you can integrate in to your daily life, into your practice. Andy Galpin talked a lot about breathing at the end of your workout, really to kind of like, again, kind of de-stress. I would venture to say that if you could go out and ground yourself while doing some deep breathing after a workout, he would say that would be even more optimal. But yeah, those are just some of the things that were kind of kicking around in my brain that are very simple things that anyone can do. And if you're not doing all of them, maybe just kind of try kicking around some of those. And I would highly recommend go check out the Earthing movie, the 15-minute documentary. And then if you're so intrigued, then go watch the longer version. But I do have, Randy's got the bag of tea holding up there in front of us. Cool. Thank you, Randy. Appreciate it. But yeah, guys, just some simple things to try, a little different call today, but hopefully that helps out, and stay tuned for that interview with Clint Ober. I've also got another really good one that should be coming out in a few days with Josh Gregory, the performance coach for Will Zalatoris, Adam Long, and a bunch of other guys on the PGA Tour. So that's going to be a good one too. That'll be out in a couple days.
Excellent.
All right. Thanks for being here, guys. Another great call. We'll see you very soon.
Yeah. Talk to you soon, guys.
All right.